Hello, everyone. I'm back out here at some fam- past family graves because I wanted to do a little bit more detailed version of this video. I did this video a while back, not long after I started my YouTube channel, and reason I wanted to come back out here and do more is because I have done a lot of research into my family history. This is obviously Ellen Stroop Wycliffe and Everett L. Dusty Wycliffe. Dusty was a nickname. That's how I got my first name. He passed away on December 12th, 2000. She passed away February 15th, 2014. Funny thing is, he was actually, I always considered him my great grandfather. I called him, Papaw, but he was my great Papaw, great grandfather. But he actually wasn't biologically my great grandfather. That was this person right here, Thomas L. Dennison Sr. L stood for Leonard. I don't know on the other grave. I don't know what the L stood for in Everett's name, but this was Thomas L. Dennison Sr. He died in 1961, August 21st, 1961. I've heard stories about what caused his death. I'm not going to go into it because I've been asked not to. But funny thing is, I'm going to show you here another grave here in a minute. I'm going to show you several graves today, but I'm going to show you another grave here in a minute that's got a little bit of history. Not directly tied into this grave, but it's just interesting to think about. This Stroop, my great grandmother Ellen, I showed you her maiden name was Stroop. Well, this was the three graves here are Leo. I never met him. He was I think he was a great uncle. Then Leona, she passed away before I was even born. That was my great grandmother. And then Garnet N. Stroop. The N stood for Noah. The reason I said that this grave was sort of not directly tied to the last grave is because this grave here shows that Garnet was the last survivor, was the last living person that was buried here. He was my great grandfather. Well, he was born in 1898, died in 1993. He was 94 years old. I was 5 when he passed away. But interestingly enough, I don't remember a whole lot about him. But just the date, 1898, because the reason I said it's not directly tied, my great grandfather James Dennison, the other great grandfather that I had, I never met him. He died in the 1950s. He was killed in an unfortunate tree cutting accident. But he was also born in 1898. So both my great grandfather Garnet Stroop and my great grandfather James Dennison, who I got my surname from, were born in 1898. One of them was only in his 50s when he died, and the other one was in his 90s. And if we come back to this grave, Thomas L. Dennison Sr., my great grandfather, that biological great grandfather, James Dennison, my great grandfather, obviously was his father. And it's just strange to think about, because I told you that my great grandfather James Dennison, he died in the 50s from an unfortunate tree cutting accident. Well, Leonard here, that's what he went by, Thomas L. Dennison Sr., he died in 1961, and it's just strange to think about because he was only 40 years old. James was only in his 50s, but here I am in 2023 at the age of 35 with their surname. Deborah Jo Dennison, December 31st, 1948 to February 28th, 1949. Yes, she was just under 2 months when she passed away. She passed away as an infant. Funny thing is, years ago, I was looking it up because I was curious, and I found her obituary on the internet. And her obituary said she had been ill. The infant had been ill for a short time. This was, she was the last child of Ellen Wycliffe, my great grandmother that passed away in 2014, and then Leonard Dennison, who passed away in 1961. She was the last child to those two, and obviously I never met her because she died long before I was even born. But it's just funny. The reason I said it was interesting, I didn't mean to say funny. Sorry about that. The reason I said it was interesting that, you know, her obituary said she was ill for a short time. But when I talked to my great-grandmother before she passed away, I mentioned Deborah Jo to her, and she said she was my last baby. She said she wasn't sick or nothing. I just laid her down for a nap, and she never woke up. Garnet Stroop Jr. Now he would have been my great uncle, if I'm not mistaken. He was the second to last child to Garnet Noah Stroop, my great-great-grandfather, and Leona Stroop, my great-great-grandmother. Reason I said he was second to last child, he was actually stillborn. That's why there's only one date on there. I was told the story that he was stillborn. A couple years later, I think it was in 1946, I have a great-great-uncle Bob who was born. He's still living. He was the youngest of his family, and the funny thing is he was born so late that he actually grew up with his niece and nephew, my great-uncle and great-aunt. Henry Stroop. He passed away in 1998. If you look at the dates, he had just celebrated his birthday and he passed away. Now, I went to his viewing. I do remember going to his viewing. I do not remember meeting him or talking to him or ever seeing him when I was growing up, because I was born in 1988. He died when I was only, 10 years old. So I don't remember a whole lot about him, but I do remember going to his viewing. And this was his wife, Betty Stroop. Now, nobody's really been able to tell me any stories about her. She would have been my great-great-aunt. But as you can see, she passed away in 1960. So, never met her and haven't been told a whole lot about her, because she wasn't. I mean, if you look at the years, she was only in her late 20s when she died. If you can't tell the years on there, 1968 to 2015. This guy, I met him a few times when I was growing up, but I didn't spend a whole lot of time with him because he was my dad's age. But funny thing is, he was actually, my great-great-grandfather was his grandfather. My family it was kind of weird. The other reason why I wanted to come out here and do this video again is because, give me one second. Several reasons why I want to come back out here and do this video again. Biggest reason was because I've done a lot of research into my family history, and I just wanted to do a more detailed version of this video. But another reason is because last time I did a video like this, it was not you couldn't hear hardly anything I was saying. You could see the tombstones, but you couldn't read much and you couldn't hear much because there was a machine going. But the other reason is, one of the biggest reasons is because it's true. One fun fact about my family, listen, my great-great-grandpa Garnet Noah Stroop, he had, let me think here, Ellen here was his firstborn, Henry was his second, then it was my great-great-aunt Mid, who passed away in 2017, my great-great-aunt Lois, who just turned 90, and then there was, Garnet Stroop Jr., who was the stillborn son, and then there was my great-great-uncle Bob. Funny thing is, if you look at the date, she was born September 1st, 1922. Bob, my great-great-uncle Bob, the baby of the family, was born so late, like I said, that he grew up with his niece and nephew, my great-aunt and great-uncle. He's only in his late 70s now. And she would have been she would have been 100 years old going on 101. He's only in his mid to late 70s. So that's how much younger he was than everybody. And the funny thing is, he kind of followed those footsteps because he's had 2 marriages in his life. And let me go back to Chuck's grave. My great granduncle Bob, he's had 2 marriages in his life. He actually, his first marriage, he had a daughter named Diana Michelle Stroop, who is still alive. Then he had Chuck, who passed away in 2015. Then he got married. He had a second wife that he had 2 other children with. Noah Stroop, who was a distant cousin, and then Connor Stroop, who's another distant cousin because they're brothers. It's just really strange because Bob was the baby of the family by, Lois was the, well, technically Garnet Jr. would have been, a couple years older than him, but he was stillborn. Lois, my great aunt Lois, she just turned 90. Bob is in his is like 76, I think. So it's just weird to think because, he's 26 years younger than his, next sibling. And he followed that by having 2 marriages and 2 sets of children. One, a daughter who's older than my dad, a son who's about the same age as my dad, who's passed away now. Then he had 2 kids that I grew up with, because one of them was born in 85, the other one was born in like 87. And it's just, that's why I was saying my family, it's just weird because they cover so many different generations. And because of, I was told a story one time about my great-grandmother Ellen. Hold on one second. My great-grandmother Ellen was at her house one day. My great-great-grandmother Leona, this is when my great-grandmother Ellen was pregnant with twins, my great-aunt and great-uncle Mike and Anita. I said that weird. I said great-aunt and great-uncle, and then I named the boy first and the woman second. But anyway, Leona, my great-great-grandmother, her mother-in-law, comes over to the house, looks at her and says, I'm going to have to go to the hospital sometime this week to get checked out. She's like, why is that? She said, I'm pregnant. And she was pregnant with my great-great-uncle Bob, her last child. But to anyone who's watched this video to this point, thank you very much. And as I said, last time I checked my subscriber count, I was at 147. Hoping that my channel continues to grow. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It is what it is. Like I said, I created it for fun, but it'd be nice if I could get monetized and start helping people out. Thank you again. Hope everyone enjoyed this video, and I will talk to everyone soon.